Okay, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I've got Sushil on the presentation with us because I know that a lot of people are going through their EIDL or EIDL loan process, and some people are getting declines, and maybe they don't think that it was right, or they messed up the application, or a lot of reasons why people want to apply for reconsideration. So we're going to go through that today, as well as answer a couple of questions, or a lot of questions, however many you have, at the end of the call. So Sushil, thanks again for joining us. I appreciate it. I know a lot of people have watched your video and appreciate all the information you share.
Thank you, Rhoda, for having us.
Okay, all right. So by now everybody knows who you are, and well, if not, Sushil is the Public Information Officer with the SBA out of the Sacramento office, and has been working with the SBA for how many years now, Sushil?
Going on, I think this year's 8.
8, okay,
8,
great.
8 long years.
8, okay, good. All right, let's get into this. Okay, so the first question is, how will people find out if they were denied?
It's usually via email. And on the application, I believe on page 2 or page 3 of the application, there is a place for business email address and a personal email address. You would have put that in. That is a form of communication between the SBA and the applicant, and that's how they would know.
Okay, all right. And about how long does it take for them to find out if they were denied? Is it instant, or is it taking like a processing time of longer than that?
You know, as much as I'd like to say instantaneously, that's not the answer. I've seen as little as a week for the whole process to be done, documented, funded, money in the bank account. And I've seen as long as 4 to 5 weeks for some sort of communique to come back. So somewhere in between is probably a happy medium. So when you submit the application, you'll get an application receive message from a .gov address. And soon thereafter, you'll get an email saying that your application is denied, or they want some more information, things along those lines.
Okay, so whatever email address you put into the system when you applied, that will be how you get your denial. And if you haven't heard anything in a few weeks, you know, check your spam. I know that a lot of times when I do applications and things, it ends up going to spam because I have my filters set pretty strict. So make sure and check your spam filters so you're not missing anything if you have those strict filters on, like a lot of people do.
As a matter of fact, let me take the time really quick to enlarge my PowerPoint presentation for something else that I used it for, and demonstrate what I'm referring to.
Do you want me to make you the presenter?
Just run for brief seconds so I could share my screen and show you what I'm looking at.
Okay, I'm going to make you the presenter.
Camera, there I am, share. And if you look, if you look right closely, see that email address? I'm on tab number 3, the business owner's information. Here's the email address.
Okay.
Another reason why an application gets turned down is, see this when I'm circling ownership percentage?
Yeah.
It's got to add up to 100%. If it's not, it'll get kicked back. Here's the other area, the business email address I was referring to. It's got to be filled out, otherwise it gets kicked out. And this is the beginning. Right here is the beginning of the application. You pick one of your businesses. You make sure that you mark off each one of them. Start entering your information, who you are, what you are, your EIN number, email that I was telling you in the middle of the actual application package, followed by this area right here. And if you fill those correctly, you're in a good situation with us. I can have the screen right back to you.
Okay, and so if you, let's go back to the ownership percentage for just a second, because if you have 50% ownership, will it automatically give you the way to add the second owner, or you'll have to add that into the comments section, or how does that work?
It actually gives you an option. So if you only put Rhoda as the owner, or you only put Sushil as the owner, it'll prompt the entrant or the data entry person to put Rhoda's name in. A lot of applications I'm seeing for reconsideration is exactly for that. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people are not listing the complete ownership percentages. Not sure why, but it's got to add up to 100%.
100%. You need to put that in there. Okay.
Correct.
All right. That's great.
Question?
Stop sharing and then you're back to you.
Do we have a question?
Yeah, we can have a question.
On the EIN number, a lot of people are sole proprietorships and don't have an EIN number. Do they substitute their social security number?
10-4.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I can't see Shushil.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay, I just can't see you on your camera, but
Oh,
okay.
sorry. I don't know why I turned it off. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. All right, so let's see here. Okay, so ownership not adding up to 100%, that's the number one reason for decline. And so if we'll go into the what to do if that's your decline reason. Let's look at the another reason for it's not declined. Economic injury is not sustained. Are you seeing that as a common decline reason, or
yeah,
tell me about this decline reason?
The low credit score is one of them. The 100% is another one. Then you see, if nothing adds up, all the information that's submitted doesn't add up. Here's another example. The letter that's sent, which is the one that you're looking at, might be the one where someone enters 3 different times their cost of goods sold. That's another area that we're seeing. So in other words, you've got revenue right below on the application cost of goods sold. Then it'll have revenue and then cost of operations if you're not a manufacturer.
Oh, I see.
So whatever strange reason, certain applicants are entering the cost of goods sold 3 different times. So guess what should end up happening? You have a loss, which was never the case. So then, instead of us pointing out that they made a mistake, we don't know what the mistake is. We'll ask for their tax return. We'll ask for a cost of goods sold statement. We'll ask them to submit all that information so we can do a full underwriting. And that's the type of form that you'll see, economic injury not substantiated. So if you notice, it says here, unfortunately, we're unable to prove, we're unable to substantiate your business. If you disagree with the decision, you may request reconsideration. What do you need to submit? Gross revenues, cost of goods sold, tax information, and a signed 4506. So for the folks on this call who are very familiar with the 4506, it's basically a tax form for the periods that we're asking to confirm, usually 3 years. Sometimes there's a little less one because applicants may have already submitted. Yeah, exactly. And sign it, date it, submit it to us, email it, or mail it.
Okay, and would just a P&L suffice, or no, that's not good?
Well, no, as a matter of fact, if you take a look, gross revenues, cost of goods sold for the last 12 months. So your financial statements would be required. If I were you, as you very correctly pointed out, send a corresponding balance sheet and income statement to match it up. It really is very helpful.
Okay, I'm pulling up the 4506. Let's see here. I can do this. Here's the 4506. Can everyone see that? It's just really asking for basic information, and it allows the SBA to get a tax transcript return from the IRS so that they can verify information. So Sheila, I think if you can comment on this, it's not going to put you at risk for an audit or something like that. Those are 2 different departments in the IRS. And I know a lot of people like, I don't want people talking to the IRS. I don't trust the IRS. I get it. But this is really something that you're going to have to do so that the SBA can get the information from the IRS. If you don't sign this and then they can't verify any information, and it's not allowable. In that number 6, transcript requested, enter the tax form number here. You're going to want to put in your business tax return. However you file your business taxes, you're going to put, if you're a sole prop, you're going to put the 1040. If you're a corporation, sorry, I forgot to turn my phone off. hang on, I got ringing in my ear. If you're a corporation, you're going to put 1120 there on number 6, and so make sure you do that so that they know what transcript they can request. And then as you scroll down,
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. I apologize.
Oh, and then I was going to say in section 9, you want to make sure that you put the year that they're allowing. Would you say 2018 and 2019, or just 2019 is fine?
2018, 2019, and make sure that you're consistent. If your tax return is a fiscal year versus a calendar year, adjust it accordingly.
Right. And then there was another section. Customer file number. Should they put their SBA loan number there, or no, don't?
Nothing,
leave that
just
blank.
leave it blank. Yep.
Okay, so fill out your name as on the joint return, current name, previous address, any of those things. It's pretty self-explanatory, except for maybe the transcript requested and the year period. So it should be easy. Remember to sign it. I've definitely had, yep, sign and date it. I've definitely seen that without that information. So you'll need that. Okay, perfect. Let's close.
Now another way to help understand the 4506T is it's not only a form of verification, it's a form of truing up data. So if I see at a rota, I'm making $120,000 and my tax return shows $90,000, we're going to be using the $90,000, or vice versa.
Yep.
You know, a lot of times folks are in need of truing up information. So that's quite important to make sure that both sets of data match up. That's where we are able to true up the values. Banks use it all the time. Fintechs use it all the time, and so does the SBA.
Right, and that's another good point. I know that I see a lot of businesses who work in cash, and they say, well, but my tax returns say this, but really I do a lot of cash business and it's not reported. We can't use that. It really is going to be based on your tax returns.
Correct. In my commercial banking days, back in 2012, going back all the way to 1986, over a 26-year period, I can tell you, I came across so many CPAs and business owners that would really state, hey, these are my books actually, and guess what? My tax return shows this. Well, I took an aggressive write-down. Well, you know, preparing one set of books for taxes, taking that write-down, and then wanting the most rosy picture for lending is a common practice even today. But it's got to be true. It's got to be congruent. It's got to be trued up. The same set of values have to be used. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Right, and I have also seen people go back and file amended returns depending on certain things, and this would be something to talk to your accountant about, is if you want to file an amended return and look at paying those penalties and things like that. That's a nuance that you could get into, but it is going to be based on the tax return, not your side books.
Correct.
All right, let's look at another one if I can get back into here.
Perhaps a play on words, not your side books, your alternative set of books.
Right, right, that's right. So decline unverifiable information. Maybe this is a little bit what we were going. I have seen this. They couldn't verify the bank account number, or they couldn't verify certain information. This was maybe more on a PPP, but talk to us about another decline information, this one, unverifiable information.
You know, social security number doesn't, is left out or is transposed. The business is not current with the Secretary of State filings. So when we look at business search, it doesn't show up because we'll do that because we're only filing, UCC ones for up to 500,000, anything below 25,000 is unsecured. So we do a business search. So a lot of these things won't come up. So between your name and the way you pulled out the application, there's a missing DBA, there's a different Secretary of State filing. When all these things add up and we can't even get off the ground as to who we're lending to and who's our borrower, it'll kick out an unverifiable information information, or in this case, a letter. Give you a small example. I had an applicant that has been waiting for funding for now almost 3 weeks. And SBA kept telling them there's something wrong with your bank account information.
Mm-hmm.
The person finally sent in their copy of the voided check. And their company name was, and I'll use our name for example, Rhoda. It'll say Sushil and Rhoda Incorporated. And in our checkbook, it is spelled out A-N-D. But on the application, for whatever reason, the ampersand sign is put in.
Yeah.
System kicked it out.
Okay.
System kicked it out because even though it's "and," it is very specific. It's seeing an ampersand sign and instead of A-N-D. So the system is that particular. If there is a banking information where there's a comma and a dot, so you kick it out. If it's Rhoda, Flum Finance Agents, comma Inc. period, if one of those commas is missing, it'll kick it out. Because once the money leaves the SBA, there's no way for it to get back. So much rather be on the side of not sending it out instead of sending it out and having a loss for the borrower and for the SBA.
Okay. It's very particular. Yeah, I definitely typos or things like that. But I guess the good news of that, it seems like that if you apply for the reconsideration, which we'll get into, that may be something that's easy to overcome. And it'll be like once it gets in front of a person's eyes, they can kind of correct it and get you the loan, or you're like, well, it's not the same. So,
is there a question there that I missed?
Yeah, are those types of declines easy to overcome, and a reasonable person can say, oh, well, it's the same business, we'll just correct the application and make everything match?
Absolutely. I nod my head vigorously to say yes, of course.
Okay. And then I know someone else I was talking to, for whatever reason, their CPA missed the filing deadline for their 2018 returns, and so they got declined. If they file the tax returns and become current, or they pay whatever they need to pay for the Secretary of State and then show they are current with that information, can they be reconsidered, or those are the types of mistakes that you can't overcome?
No. The idea is to put as much money on the streets as possible.
Okay.
Another way of saying that eloquently is we're looking to lend money. No one benefits if we don't lend money. So the idea is, if there's satisfactory credit history, if there's cash flow evident, the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, for the most part, the money is yours. It's really the volume of information coming in given the pandemic, along with the reluctance to get it right. Why there's a reluctance, I have no idea. I've found a lot of folks saying, this is what I gave you, work with what I got. Can't do that. If it's insufficient for us to make a decision, that's where it is. Well, I never got the letter. Well, let me send you a copy of the letter. And then the information comes in piecemeal. Those are all things that delay the process.
Yeah, I mean, working in loan processing and things like that, let me reiterate that piecemeal portion. Having a complete package is very important, because every time you open a file, you sort of have to refamiliarize yourself with it, and then you are missing a piece, and so you have to stop and you go back and ask for that piece. You get the one piece in, then you re-look at it, and it's very time consuming. So being as thorough as possible is definitely a good thing.
I mean, you're very successful in the world of SBA 7A 504 and all the other items that your company works on. You know exactly what I'm referring to when I say I need a complete package. And when you're working with the volume that you're working with, not only is it time consuming, it also takes time away from another deal that's got a complete package. And we're not going to be scrambling for it, because if the applicant themselves chooses not to send it in for whatever reason, it's on them. And we can't proceed any further because it's the law.
Right. And I also will advise people, if you have a bullet list like this, go through, and as you attach files and you email them to this email address, label the files that way. If they're saying bank account information is not verifiable, don't leave the file labeled whatever you scan it at. It is very helpful to name the file properly. If you're sending in a picture of your driver's license, label it Rhoda Flum driver's license. If you have your tax returns, label it 2019 tax return for Sushil and whatever. It's very helpful and helps with, it just is very helpful as someone who processes loans to get an organized application. Help the person say yes to you.
That's exactly right. Well said. Because we're both in the same line of work. I'm packaging, not I'm packaging, I'm on the economic injury disaster loan side. You're on the 7A 504 SBA world side. So, my God, it's just words to the wise. More and more importantly, save time. Nomenclature is important. Send a complete package in. And if you have sent a complete package in, as I mentioned, there was an applicant from Oklahoma. 7 days, start to finish, got funding. 7 days. I mean, incredible. That's how quickly it turned out to be.
Right. All right. Next reason for decline, withdrawal request by applicant. Why would this be happening? Then we would know they withdrew the request.
Yeah. So another way of saying that politely is that we, as the institution, did not get a timely response, and usually that time frame is 14 days. So I send Rhoda.
How many days? Sorry, 14.
14. So I sent Rhoda an email 14 days ago. Today's the 13th, so July 31st. I sent an email to Rhoda July 31st. I reminded her on 7th of August. Today's the 13th. I haven't heard back from her. So my inclination is that she's disinterested. So I withdraw the file, keep your place in line, send you an email saying at your request, we are withdrawing it because you're complicit by not answering. And that's called a withdrawal. And then we give you 6 months to come back to provide the information that you didn't get a chance to provide in the 14-day period. This prevents the stale dating of the application, doesn't mess up the pipeline, and makes sure that everybody gets due consideration on a timely basis.
Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. I
sent this to you. I sent this to you for the email address picture down here, business email.
Right. And then are you seeing... Sorry?
I was going to say the date this is established has got to be prior to the declaration date. Your ownership's got to be prior to that. Your business activity cannot be prohibited. Those are the other reasons why you get a turn down. I had a situation where a business owner was getting funding from the VCs, venture capitalists. We can't lend to them. They already have a source of funding. And the fact that they chose not to lend on a 12% basis and then want us to borrow 3%, they're in the lending business. They can choose to get that from the VCs.
Okay. What are a couple other industries that are forbidden?
Another example would be a real estate speculation. So Rhoda and I are buying land together. We haven't built anything on it yet. It's hard to incur a loss when it's raw land. It's hard to incur a loss when you just started doing a construction loan and the property is not income producing yet. There is no stabilization. There is no stabilization rate. There is no occupancy. There can't be any type of loss per se. The fact that the bank stopped lending to you is not evident enough of an economic injury. That is purely speculative business that you were telling the bank that if I did this, 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 and this, you would have this, 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 and this. That in itself is not something we can lend against. Gambling, that's another one we can lend to. Political lobbying is another example we cannot lend to. Chambers of commerce, that in the political lending business we can lend to.
Trying to think of, would you lend to a vape shop or a pot shop or any of these other sin industries?
Pot shop, no.
Gentleman's club?
No. Gentleman's club, no. On a side note, I never knew why that was called a gentleman's club, but be that as it may. Pot club, no. Because pot's, is a federally banned substance, even though it's legal California, Colorado, Washington, to name a few states. But anything of a query and sexual nature is not good. Anything that's banned by the feds is not good for lending money against. So those are very clearly those industries which are a no-no.
Okay. But the nonprofits, churches, that's okay because, correct?
Yeah, and the way we approach that is faith-based organizations, FBOs.
Okay. It's
And
okay.
they very
It doesn't
clearly
matter if it's a mosque or a synagogue or something like that, right? That's a good point.
Absolutely
Okay. All right. Here we are. How do I request a reconsideration? I know this was a big one. The email is here, pdcrecons@sba.gov. Probably the fastest and most efficient way to do it, or you can write a letter, the paper and snail mail kind.
Right. In my humble opinion, email it. If it doesn't bounce back, that's your evidence that they received it, and keep that handy. Once they do accept it formally, you'll get a formal acceptance email.
Okay.
Stating that we've gotten your application, we're starting to work on it.
Okay. So will they get an auto reply, or it may be quiet for a while? Okay. Auto reply and then another one a little while later.
Right. And you started saying it may be quite a while. I'll take the quiet out and I'll take the while out and fill it in with, you'll get a response.
Okay. Okay. And then we're going to go through here, like what would be a good sample reconsideration letter?
You know, anything that we need to do to overcome the decision made by the SBA, right? So if I were to be turned down for low unsatisfactory credit history, I need to list in there why I had the low credit score, if you know it, what was driving the low credit score. In other words, package that together into something more subjective called unsatisfactory credit. And state, Citibank, this happened. American Express, this happened. My car loan, this happened. Divorce, medical stuff, bankruptcy, things along those lines. List the reasons what drove the unsatisfactory credit score. That would be an example of it. Another example of unverifiable information, was listed there. Pick those items that contributed to the unverifiable information: copy of a driver's license, copy of a tax return, evidence of who you are, what you are. Send that in. So depending on the reason for the decline, customize the letter that overcomes the decision made by the CPA, by the SBA.
Right. And another thing is make it easy. Again, think about the processor and their loan volume. And if the email on your application is your business email, write the reconsideration from that email so they have a way to link the file. Don't use your personal email. Use the same email that's on your application, so it's easier to link. Here's a sample one. Make sure you include your application number. I'd probably put that in the subject line along with your business legal name, and then title reconsideration. So application number, Sushil and Rhoda, reconsideration, and then put this information in here. The application was being denied to poor credit. I believe I should be eligible for the EIDL because, and then say, my credit has suffered since February 15th. I have missed payments for X, Y, and Z. Prior to that, my credit was a 620, and I have whatever. Attached are the submission files to my documents. I don't know what you could submit there. Maybe, the dates of your missed payments or why you missed them, or my son fell out of a tree and I had to either make my credit card payment or pay his medical bills. All of the things that happen, put that in there. Or if you have your tax returns attached. Attached are my 2019 business tax returns and a P&L and balance sheet year to date to show the economic injury, and do that, and then put your phone number again in the bottom of the email.
Right.
Okay. Let's see here. How long does reconsideration take?
I erred on the side of being optimistic. I listed 2 or 3 weeks. probably on the longer end. It's probably 3 weeks. Okay. Pandemic. I think everybody's tired of hearing the word pandemic. It's
well, everybody's
historic.
tired of the
Yes.
pandemic. Everybody's
Say
tired
again?
of COVID.
Yeah, tired of COVID. Exactly right. And so basically, volume is what's driving the turnaround time. Back to what we talked about earlier. We have a complete package. There they are. I mean, there are forms which are being filled out, and when it comes to the signature and the date, it's not there. So if Rhoda and Sushil don't sign Rhoda and Sushil, guess what? We can't do anything with it. Yes, you filled out the application, but it looks like the underwriter may have filled it out, right? So a lot of what I've seen where people have solicited my assistance, whether it be congressional offices, elected offices, and say, Sushil, would you take a look at these applications? What's driving this equation? It clearly is the notations or lack thereof. Missed check, a missed copy of a driver's license, a missed tax return, a missed 4506T, a missed form dated and signed. I mean, just the basic stuff, because nobody
Right.
wants to fill out paperwork. Nobody wants to be asked questions after they filled it in. And of course, when you add the stress level associated with this pandemic, people don't want them to do with it. They don't want to touch the paper more than once.
Right.
So
Yeah,
take the
when
time
people
to fill it out. Take the time to fill it out. Take the time to do it right, review it, save the file, as you mentioned, and then run with it. Give
Right.
us something to work with.
Right. I try and remind people, I know it's going to take an hour or two and you're very busy, but it could be $30,000. And if I made $30,000 for 2 hours of work, I'd work a lot more. I'd buy a yacht or
Exactly.
something, but
Exactly.
it's you keep your eye on the prize when you're working through some of these things.
Absolutely. Look, we all want, at the end of the day, to lend money, feel good about it.
Right.
We just need your help because we can't do it all.
Okay, now we're going to hop into some questions that we had from the previous one when we were talking about the EIDL portal. People still haven't received funding. It's been 5 weeks, 6 weeks. What's the best way to follow up on that?
1-800 number. Take a look at the example that I took about your check, book, matching the title on your application.
Do you
Make
have
sure
that 800 number memorized so we can give that to people?
Yep, it's on that previous slide that you had on.
Is it?
But I'll give it to you again. It's 800-659-2955. If you go further up towards the copy of the denial letter, right there.
Oh, here it is. 800-659-2955.
Right.
Or email disastercustomerservice@sba.gov.
That's correct.
Okay, great.
And it's something that simple. When it gets to funding and they're ready to fund and you haven't gotten your money, it's very simply an issue with the bank. The bank has rejected. I've seen copies of text messages, emails from the bank saying, yes, your direct deposit was returned because there was a factual error. I mean, from Bank of America, Capital One, so many different banks. So when I say that it's not the SBA not wanting to deposit the money, the banks are returning the money because they don't want to hold on to that money because they don't know if the customer is really the ultimate recipient. So they're kicking it back to the SBA.
I see. Okay.
It actually gives you a tracer number, rejector number on the ACH, and it says rejected. You'll see the deposit and you see the money actually going back. And it was because instead of saying Sushila and Rhoda Flum Incorporated, period, it just says Rhoda Flum Inc., period. Sushila's left out or vice versa. Or the period is gone or the ink is gone. Our name doesn't show. It just shows up as XYZ Incorporated.
Right.
It's got to be very particular.
Very particular. And it's not to say that this isn't frustrating for you as the small business owner, but if you're the bank, you gotta watch out and you gotta dot your I's and cross your T's. And if it's not, then unfortunately they can't accept it. So everyone understands the frustration and it's very particular, but just go through it and jump through the hoops a little bit, unfortunately, and try and figure out what's going on. If you get a rejection, I'm sure as a business owner, you have a business banker that you can contact and maybe get more information. If you're not understanding why, and say, why did you reject this, if you can't get all of that information. But I understand that that would be frustrating if you think the money is coming and then it's blocked. So, you know, the bank wants you to get money too. They want you to have your business survive, but they gotta be careful as well.
The end customer has a lot at stake. And if there's a common theme we're seeing on this call, on this presentation, is good data yields good results. Let it be dotted and crossed. Quicker that's done, quicker you get your money. These barriers, the so-called barriers that exist, is there to protect the institution and ultimately the borrower.
I didn't get invited to the portal, and loan then got declined. If somebody misses their invitation, can they request a new email for the invite to the portal? Kind of getting into when we were talking about the forgivable advance versus me calling it a grant, right?
Yep,
and if they get declined for the loan, do they have to pay back that forgivable part?
No.
Okay. Update on processing times, we kind of went through. If they decide not to take the loan, not that they don't get declined, can they still keep the forgivable portion?
Yes.
Okay. Can you apply for 2 different businesses?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so on that, to go into it a little more, you would need 2 applications with different EINs. To go back to and really hash this out, you make sure you've got the business name properly on the application, and make sure that both applications have their different COGS, their different operating costs. Make sure that you keep those numbers correct so that you can qualify. But yes, you can qualify, just make sure you've got 2 applications.
Correct, 2 separate EIN numbers.
Right. Can you increase the loan amount? Yep, we went into that. Just apply through that email address, the PDR recons or whatever it was at SBA.gov.
PDC recons, correct.
Okay, good. And then I think this is kind of going back to your other point. One of the comments was said that the loan officer says you can't request an increase. Maybe it was too soon.
And let me parse those words a little bit. The loan officer is going to say, unfortunately, an increase is not available. Okay, and that's their way of saying that Washington, way up the food chain, decided that they were going to make monies available for all, not for some. So they reached that ceiling to that particular business owner, which are few and far between. Generally speaking, my experience has been you requested. For the most part, the money is yours. I have seen situations where the business didn't get as much, in which case we suggested they reach out to their banks to get their lines of credit increased. I'll give you an example, a small example. I was talking to a person in Southern California, your neck of the woods. They had a line that they had their request. They wanted 100,000. I'm sorry, they had needed 200,000 for their working capital. They only got 150, right? And they didn't want to sign the loan documents. To make a long story short, when I finished talking to the owner said, when I asked a few more questions, so on and so forth, they had $5.5 million as a bank line of credit untapped.
Oh.
So a lot of times, the business owner chooses not to tap their existing lines for whatever their reason happens to be, and tap a subsidized bank line of credit. Ours is not a line of credit, it's an installment loan. There's no deferment. I mean, there's deferment for 12 months. The bank doesn't have a deferment. Our repayment is 30 years. They have to rest their line every 30 days, depending on the conventional line. So it becomes more of a arbitrage between, hey man, I got the money, but I don't like the terms, versus I don't have the money. So our job as an SBA, as the lender of last resort, especially in economic injury, is to make sure that we do our part. The expectation is that the customer does their part, the applicant does their part, and the person says, you know, I guess I can do without the $50,000. I got a $5 million line sitting here on tap. And when I asked what the interest rate was 4.5%. Why did they want to use that? Ours was 3.75. Why did they want to use that line? Because they need to start making payments the following month, minimum payments at 4.5. We don't have to pay ours for at least 12 months. So they became the product terms again, right? So there's that balance. There's that balance. And the person completely understood. They said, look, I understand. I'm blessed enough to have $5 million in untapped lines of credit, whereas somebody else might need an extra 50. I get it. I appreciate your explanation.
Right. Yeah, that's an important point. Some business owners right now really don't have access to other capital, and they need this money. And you have to remember that rather that there's only so much at the end of the day. We're trying to give it to everyone, but yeah, some people are really hurting right now, and they don't have options.
And here's the other part, and that you hit the nail on the head. $170 billion later, give or take, is what the idle funds have amounted to. People still don't see light at the end of the road because they rightfully don't see it. Number one. Number two, we're talking about small businesses. And the definition of small business, you can look up the CFR 123.2, what the definition of small business is. And literally, when you have a $5 million line, the subsidy that the SBA's idle program provides is clearly not needed. If you've got $5 million in line, untapped lines, you know, but that's not my place to call it.
Right. Okay, let's open it up. Let me see if we have, I know we've got some people on the call. I'm gonna unmute everyone and open it up for questions. Was I good on that? Unmute all, I pressed it. If you have a question, now is your moment to shine. Try to unmute everyone. If you have a question, make sure you unmute yourself. Any questions, or was the information that thorough?
Hey, great job, guys. No, really appreciate it. I had to have a list of questions that did get answered. I know a big one was I've had multiple people ask about how to request reconsideration. So I appreciate you putting that slide up there with the email information as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Andy. Any other questions, comments? Has anybody talked to anyone who has a situation that maybe we didn't cover?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Felt.
I know this is a popular question that he's used to, but people still want to know, is there any additional information on the up to $10,000 grant being reactivated?
None, sir.
Thank you.
That part is done.
It's expired on the 11th of July, and until Congress reappropriates, we don't have a program to tap into.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nothing from Marcy and nothing from Miss Flavors.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Was that a no, you can't get anything more if somebody only got 10,000, but yet their economic impact was greater than that? They got it a couple of months ago. There's no way right now to get any more because that time for them to apply for more has expired. Is that correct?
It's correct. The law maximized 1,000 per employee with no more than $10,000. So you have 15 employees, you only got 10,000 anyway. And if you have not taken advantage of the economic injury disaster loan program, I would suggest that you apply for that. Because clearly, as you very correctly pointed out, $10,000 does not do a world of good when the working capital need is a multiple of that number.
The amount that you're
Go Go ahead, Jim, sorry.
The amount that you're given is, or loaned, is based on the credit report. Is it based on the entire credit report or just primarily the FICO score?
Oh God, no, that's just a small subset of a larger equation. As you know, Jim, very well, credit score just measures your willingness to pay. Ability to pay is measured by the various metrics that we commercial lenders, SBA lenders, take the time to score and grade. So the combination of the two is what we're looking at. So one set of circumstances never is the cure-all for a larger situation.
Yep, that's the way we do it. So I totally understand that. You're right. But although there are a few things out there that just go on credit score, and they wanted me to ask. So is it also last year's profit shown on your tax returns?
Yes, sir. Very much so.
Terrific. Thanks very kindly.
And then I think last time, Sushil, you said there was some logarithm they were doing based on NAICS codes and things like that to help for the loan amount so that they could automate the process more. Is that still how they're underwriting too, based on NAICS?
The rapid, it's called the rapid system. And yes, and they've got on the back end, they've got the NAICS code that drives the revenue and the working capital requirements, stuff like that. And they don't tell me what it is. I do know that generally speaking, when you look at, for example, I'm just going to make this number up, 1111, it happens to be the restaurant industry, for example. Within that restaurant industry, it'll break down all kinds of different subsets. If the annual revenue maximum there is $8 million, and the customer comes back and says the working capital requirement is $2 million, clearly the math doesn't add up. So that's how the system is set up to filter out the request on hand versus what's realistically the working capital need.
Okay. Good information. Any other questions, comments?
No, I don't want to trivialize anyone with this remark. And I say that because sometimes it's how the person might perceive the information coming out. We're lenders. We're all lenders. You're a lender. I'm a lender. Banks are lenders. Money is green. The only key difference is this money comes from our taxpayer subsidy, all of us. So there's a balance that needs to be struck between lending money and preserving taxpayer money. We wouldn't lend to an organization that was already on its way out for whatever reason, and COVID may have put them out, or a hurricane may have put them out, or a wildfire may have put them out. So the metrics of lending don't change. It just so happens because it's taxpayer subsidized and the government has approved us for a certain type of term structure, fixed interest rate, no prepayment penalty, no cost to borrow, no cost to apply, so on and so forth. It makes us a preferred lender in a world where there's no demand post-disaster, if you will. Because no bank in their right mind would want to lend at a time of acute distress because they don't know how they're going to get repaid. So the government becomes a lender of last resort, like the Fed. So if you look at it from that prism, all we're trying to do is lend money to people who are in great deal of need. What do we need in its place? Documentation, timely, complete, concise, so that we can lend you the money up to our statutory maximums.
Right. Yeah. As you look at going into the 5 C's of credit, the conditions right now don't make it very amenable for anyone to lend. So, yep, it's a good point. Very good point.
And Jim could appreciate this remark. Jim, I'm going to solicit your opinion for a second. Why do you think the Treasury is backstopping? I mean, the Federal Reserve is backstopping the Treasury. Why is there a Main Street lending facility? These are unprecedented times for people wanting to know the markets are functioning. They want to know that there is a market for capital access. That's where they come to us. And rest of it, read through your Wall Street journals and your Barron's and your position papers on different things. But we're in unprecedented times, and we're trying to do our part, a small part, in helping a small business get on its feet.
Yeah, these are excellent points that we need to keep in mind as we're going through this. Does anybody have any other comments or questions that they want to put in here? I'm cognizant of the time. Don't want to keep you too much longer. Any other comments or questions? All right, Sushil, I will give you the last word as we move out, and I thank you again for joining us. I will put the our email if you have other questions for follow-up in the description box. I know we had a lot of comments on the other show. Sushil, last word.
Your institution, your folks have done a tremendous job of giving us airtime and focus and exposure. We appreciate the opportunity to work with you. And the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program is one small part of a larger package of loans and capital access that the government is offering to help businesses stay in business and provide the necessary liquidity needed in the form of subsidized money. We appreciate the opportunity, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon again. And if there are other questions that we need to cover for the reconsideration world, I'm here to phone call away and email away. Appreciate you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. You've got the email address. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll be in touch. Thank you. Thanks, Sushil. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Sushil.
Welcome.